like my shoes.
I did what? You don't trust me?
You gotta earn trust.
Okay, we'll earn it together. Here, take mine.
Hey, Johnny, I don't think this is such a good idea. Bodhi's pack job's pretty shitty. They only open about half the time.
What? Bullshit.
Why don't you take young grommets here? How'd that be?
Nah, you don't want this one, man. This one's set for a neck breaker. He's probably better off with something like this. Get a jump or jerk off.
That's my man.
Where'd he go?
Episode 37 of the Cult of Matt and Mark Cult Film Review Podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Mark.
And make sure to visit our website at cultfilmreview.blogspot.com, and our email address, if you want to write us, is cultfilmreview@gmail.com, and download the Stitcher app and hear streaming on your smart device.
Have we ever got an email?
No.
All right.
Yes, no. I got
That's my boy.
I got some spam once, but
oh really? Ooh.
Yeah. I don't know. I got knocked. Somebody put a comment that we didn't have an email address and they were trying to get a hold of us, and so I put one up because I'd been meaning to do it, and that was enough of an impetus to do it. So yeah, leave a comment if you're lazy. Don't want to construct an email. Email is sort of getting old-fashioned anyway.
It is. We should really have a Twitter account that they can do. They can instant Twitter messages.
We have Twitter.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, it gets automatically updated.
Do you tweet on it?
No, it does it when I put out a post, so it'll get updated.
Well, I'm going to have to register on Twitter.
And I think it would, I forget, it's the Cult of Matt and Mark at Cult Film Review, so if you want to follow us on Twitter.
That's a long name.
I don't know how Twitter works, to be honest. I just set up the account and it automatically updates, so.
Okay, that's fine.
You can get to it from our website, I know that much.
Well, I'm going to check it out.
This week, our film is the cult classic Point Break, released in 1991, directed by Catherine Bigelow, Oscar award-winning Catherine Bigelow. For a movie, did you see, what was the Hurt Locker?
I did not see the Hurt Locker.
Oh.
I was thinking of torrenting it, but then they started suing everybody.
You don't torrent, kids. Steal from the artists.
No, I never saw it. Actually, it's sitting on my DVR, but I haven't watched it.
It's surprisingly has similar themes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised about the time span difference, but maybe you know more about that than me.
Not so much. Catherine Bigelow, this was released in 1991. She was married to King of the World James Cameron.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, Point Break was released at the same time as Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Oh, was it?
So there's probably some friendly competition there.
Oh.
Although I'm sure Terminator 2 blew Point Break out of the water. Point Break had a budget of $24 million and grossed $83 million at the box office, so it wasn't a loser. It was. I remember seeing it actually in the summertime. Friend of mine from high school, Michael Lewis, you remember?
Oh, Big Mike.
Big Mike. Yeah, we saw. I don't know. We saw like 3 movies a week. Cause
there was one summer you guys were just going movie nuts?
Yeah, we had days off during the week, so we would just go hit matinees for like $3 or whatever they were back then.
Would you hit multiple showings in one go, or just?
No, we'd space it out.
It wasn't that ghetto.
Yeah, we saw a lot of shit then. I think we even saw like Problem Child, which is one of those terrible like.
Oh yeah,
who
was the mover and shaker of Problem Child? There was some child actor, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Famous now, but I thought there was somebody.
Yeah, so we saw it back then, and it's sort of stuck. I don't know how many times I've seen Point Break, but Point Break is definitely stuck with me. It's my dad's favorite movie.
Really? I mean, it's a good movie. I'd just be hard-pressed making this movie my favorite movie, because it does have some faults.
Just a few. This is your first viewing of Point Break, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I've never seen it before. I guess, it's one of the things that I always thought I should view, especially after I watch Hot Fuzz, which I really enjoyed. That's by the same guy who did Shaun of the Dead.
And
they talk about Point Break in that film as being a quintessential movie. So I thought, I really got to go see that. And Bad Boys. They talk about Bad Boys.
Bad Boys.
Too. But I hadn't seen it. I mean, I'm glad I did. And I certainly enjoyed it. But it certainly is not without its faults. But boy, is it a beautiful film to watch.
So let's run down the plot for those who maybe are listening to this that haven't seen Point Break in the past 5 years, although it's kind of hard to forget what the movie's about. Here we go. Johnny Utah, great name, by the way.
That is a classic name. I don't know who came up with that name. It must have been the screenwriter, hopefully. That's just a classic name.
Reeves, he liked the name of his character. Because it was sort of a cross between Johnny Unitas and Joe Montana.
It's a great. I did put a state name in there. It just really makes it bounce.
Yeah, there's not a lot of state name characters. Mm-hmm. I was thinking of there's a Patricia Arquette character in Tony Scott's True Romance called Alabama.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
Georgia. Yeah, there's quite. You could probably come up with a few other ones. Mm-hmm. Top of my head. Missouri. Well, there's guys called Tex after Texas.
Yeah.
But they're called Tex.
Yeah, Texas is sort of a special case.
So Johnny Utah is a special agent for the FBI. Utah gets partnered with Angelo Pappas, played by a somewhat sane Gary Busey.
Post-accident, though.
Post-accident Gary Busey. An experienced agent who is more than committed to his work. The two are asked to investigate the number of robberies committed by a group called the Ex-Presidents, who wear masks of President Reagan, Nixon, Carter, and Johnson for their robberies. Pappas has a theory that the ex-presidents are a group of surfers and asks for Utah to go undercover as a surfer. Problem is, Utah couldn't surf to save his life. That, plus the continuously being harassed by the unpleasant and rough Agent Harp, Agent Harp played by, what's his name? John C. McGinley.
Oh, yeah, he's a great actor. Of course, we all enjoyed him in Scrubs.
Scrubs, that's kind of where I think of him from. With the help of Tyler Perry, played by Lori Petty, a competent female surfer, Utah begins to gain respect of local surfer Bodhi, played by Patrick Swayze and his group. Utah forms a close bond with Bodhi, but the relationship between Utah and Bodhi becomes limited when Utah suspects that Bodhi and his group are the ex-presidents. And that's kind of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fairly straightforward.
When he finds that realization, it's literally right in the middle of the film. This movie is 2 hours, 2 minutes long. He sees them throw the BA on the beach, and comes to a realization at 1 hour, 1 minute.
Interesting. I didn't do the timeline.
I thought it was really neat that broke so early in the film, because then the film takes another section, which we'll talk about in the second half of today's show. But that is an interesting moment in the film.
So some production history. Originally, Matthew Broderick and Charlie Sheen were to star in this film, and it was going to be directed by Ridley Scott.
The murderer Matthew Broderick?
The murderer Matthew Broderick.
And Charlie Sheen.
Do you say that ironically? When you... okay, Matthew Broderick was charged with drinking and driving in Ireland.
He was blitzed and killed somebody when he lost control of his car.
In Ireland.
Or a mother-daughter or something like that.
Yeah.
And he paid a fine.
And so we tend to think of drinking and driving in the U.S. as waving around a loaded gun, more or less.
Well, most of the world sees it that way these days. Because people crunch the numbers on drinking and driving, and people figure out how dangerous it really is. So society as a whole decided that before you could drink and drive, but now it's verboten behavior.
There was
though widely done by people.
There was a Onion article, and it was 97% of drunk drivers get home okay.
Much higher than that. I know the few occasions that I drove, I never drove blasted, but certainly over .08, that I got home all right. But
yeah,
that's your early 20s.
I used to.
I can't imagine. You'd be hard pressed for somebody other than a teetotaler who's never got behind the wheel where they're pushing that .08.
I used to drive home from a friend's house when I was in Laramie, Wyoming, fairly blitzed, but that was
you have to. That's isn't that like a city bylaw?
That's a requirement. They go, you're under the limit. It's Saturday night. Go to jail. Well, I had like 3 right turns and a left turn or something like that, and it was usually there was snow on the ground, so your car was kind of skidding around anyway. Mm-hmm. So, and you're going about 10 miles an hour, so it was never really I didn't really think of myself as endangering anybody. It was usually at like 1 in the morning.
Why I call Matthew Broderick the murderer Matthew Broderick is because they do charge people with basically murder in this country if you have an accident while you're drunk and kill somebody. You can get like 5-year prison sentence.
It's not manslaughter; it's technically murder.
No, I think it's considered like they had a premeditation because you decided to get drunk. So I think the idea of sending somebody to jail and making them a felon because they drank and killed somebody in a motor vehicle collision, I think that's pretty outrageous. I also think the idea that you get drunk in another country and you do the same thing and all you get is a fine, and you're still beloved by the American people, I find that pretty funny too. It's sort of, you're showing the extremes of something. Look, shit happens. I take a little bit of a shit happens attitude towards life. Sometimes your brother gets killed on the road, and it's tough. And believe me, if that happened to me, I'd be pissed. But shit happens.
Coincidentally, he was in the car with Jennifer Grey, who is also the co-star of Mr. Patrick Swayze.
She has facial injuries. That's why she had that nose job.
No, she did not. She's unrecognizable now, which is kind of a bummer, because she was sort of...
She had that honker that was very
fine. She was a cute girl.
But anyways, that's the Matthew
She co-starred with Patrick Swayze, who's in this film as Bodhi, in Dirty Dancing, which I saw recently because it was like Rose's favorite movie.
I have never seen it.
Oh, it's worth watching.
Oh, really?
Not because it's a good movie, but it's just worth watching.
So it's Gray and who's the co-star?
Patrick Swayze.
Oh, I thought it was Kevin Bacon.
It's Patrick Swayze and Kevin Bacon have a little bit of like persona, kind of movie-wise, a little bit of that.
They differ on their pancreatic cancer similarities, though.
Yeah, the Kevin Bacon didn't get pancreatic cancer and die, but Patrick Swayze, unfortunately, is no longer with us.
Yeah, that's not something you want to joke about.
No. So I don't know if Matthew Broderick was going to play Keanu or Charlie Sheen was going to play Bodhi. I guess it doesn't really matter. It's probably not worth speculating too much. Point Break was originally going to be called Johnny Utah.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be a bad name.
But they thought that the film didn't really give a hint about what the film was about.
Well, yeah, I mean, considering all the, there was just an incredible degree of filmmaking skill. The first half of this film is almost some of the best shots of surfing I've ever seen. There's just amazing surfing photography. I don't know any of the story about who Catherine Bigelow brought in, but it almost seems like Catherine Bigelow just wanted to make a surf film using modern techniques of filmmaking.
It's been commented on. There's some reviews that have said that it has some of the 10 best surfing scenes in cinema.
I mean, the cinematography is just fucking amazing. Absolutely fucking amazing.
That's what I appreciated more about this movie now than I think I did back then. It doesn't surprise me, though, that Ridley Scott was going to be tapped to direct it.
Just because they needed a great filmmaker who really understood modern cinematography?
It's a visual movie.
Oh, yeah.
At its core. And we get treated just to that kind of the slow-mo surfing shots, which I found interestingly done, is that they are able to hide kind of the stuntman's face or the stunt surfer's face in such a way that you never actually see that it's really not the person.
Well, that's quite often it is the person. Maybe not ripping it real hardcore, but riding in front of the wave like they're riding out of a tube they just caught. There's some great surfing by the actual actors.
True. Lori Petty, Patrick Swayze, and Keanu Reeves actually learned how to surf on the island of Kauai together. I don't think Patrick Swayze had been surfing a couple times. Keanu had never surfed before, and Lori Petty had never been in the ocean. So
She'd never been in the ocean?
yeah, so there's this professional surfer, Dennis Jarvis, who trained them to surf, I guess, to the point that they could star in surfing scenes in the film. Yeah, and actually Patrick Swayze is a skydiver, so all the skydiving scenes were Patrick Swayze.
And, oh yeah. Well, some of them were simulated skydiving, certainly.
Yeah, you
Like
kind
where
of
they're
had...
yakking to each other.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you can talk while you're skydiving. But, also, I think two of Bodhi's gang, they were professional, surfers.
Oh, really?
/ amateur actors. Like
okay.
two of those guys. So a lot of the heavy duty surfing stuff by the actual ex-presidents, those are those real guys. They were
interesting.
real surfers.
So, a lot of this film kind of seems to be filmed what they call in Hollywood is the magic hour, which is that hour before sunset where you get the golden light and
Yeah, it's warm and it's coming in at sort of sideways.
yeah.
So everybody's lit real nice from one direction. You don't get all those harsh shadows coming down from overhead.
If it's like a reboot of almost the Beach Boys' California Dream. Southern California looks great in this film.
Is that where they shot?
Yeah, in and around
I'm
LA
not sure.
and Malibu.
I know that some of the rainy scenes that were supposed to be northern Australia were shot on the Oregon coast.
Correct. But most of it, is obviously filmed in LA. I mean, they film movies there anyway, and so that's where it takes place.
Oh, right.
But it has just it makes it kind of, when I was 18 watching the movie, it made me almost wish I had grown up or lived in Southern California. It just looked...
It made you want to surf? I
A
don't know. It
bit.
seemed like a real pain in the ass, especially with Anthony Kiedis walking around, busting your balls all the time. I don't know if I want to go through all the trouble. It's like, it'd be sort of fun to surf, but first you have to be really fit. And then you have to deal with all those assholes.
Well, I don't know. Okay, so
And in the end, what are you doing? You're like skiing down a wave?
yeah.
Why don't you just go up to the slopes?
The surfing, well, in Southern California, the territorial hangs that they were...
Well, I think that's everywhere.
Well,
I think it's a realistic aspect of surfing.
I don't know. Like in Huntington Beach, California, there's like a Boeing surf club or something. Like we're actually it's like a corporate surf club where, people my age
have
go
your
out
ID,
and go
hey,
surfing.
get the fuck out of here.
That's in certain places. You can go to friendly beaches in California. It probably doesn't have the greatest surf or the most radical surf.
Or where the point break's really hitting.
You could just go out there and futz around on a surfboard and maybe get up and,
Well, like so many outdoor activities, it seems like a lot of danger for not a huge amount of payoff.
I was down on the Oregon coast this spring near Cannon Beach, and there's surfing's kind of... Cold water surfing's kind of gotten a little bit more popular, and I think it's
just because maybe better wetsuits?
No, I think it's more just because kind of outdoor sports or extreme sports or that sort of outdoorsy vibe that's sort of our generation more so than previous generations has driven people to do things that they hadn't done in the past, like surfing cold water. Like here in Washington, Westport, down on the coast, is a pretty big surfing location.
In the Puget Sound, there's some
sweet ass. You
get like 3-4 inch high waves.
Totally. You can ride it for maybe a foot or two.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. Anyway, down on Oregon, and so we were watching surfers, one of these bays or coves near Cannon Beach down there, and it just looked like so much fucking work. For starters, they have to get out to the waves.
Yeah, so you got to get over the break.
And so there's all this frothy break and turbulence in the water because of the rocks that are out there. It just looked exhausting. So I watched these 2 or 3 guys, and one of them went one direction, one went the other because they thought they could, it was better to go through it and around it. It took them like 10 minutes just to get out to where a wave was. Mm-hmm. And they're waiting for a wave, and so they're out there for, another period of time waiting for a wave. And then they would finally catch one, and then they get up, and then they go back down again. and they would get pushed in past the break, and they'd have to kind of do it all over.
So it'd be like 15, 20 minutes in between
for
poorly catching a weak
for
wave.
5 to 10 seconds of
Getting up on your board.
moderately exciting, if surfing, usually aborted efforts.
All right, so neither of us be interested in surfing?
I don't know.
It seems like it'd be easier to just go skiing.
Hawaii is a different story. Yeah, skiing you get a lot more run time.
I mean, it'd
for
be sort of
your
nice if
effort.
you lived right on the beach. Be a nice thing to do, a little activity in the morning or in the after work.
Well, I haven't had the rush of being on a surfboard as the wave is pushing you. So maybe there's something like Bodhi was describing that's like a hit of heroin there for a half a second or two when you're on a big wave. I don't know.
Guess.
In Hawaii,
You gotta be an adrenaline junkie, man.
Yeah.
You're gonna Bodhi, he'll take you to the edge.
He'll take you to the fucking edge.
Maybe beyond it.
I want to talk about.
Thanks, Tyler.
I want to talk about Bodhi in a bit because that's a whole character study unto itself.
But just talking about the great photography.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about the great photography of Southern California and went on to surfing, so we're kind of a little bit scattered there. But I wanted to talk about surfing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bit of a love letter to surfing. I don't know why, Catherine Bigelow, but she certainly wrote a beautiful letter.
Yeah. It paints surfing in a very romantic light.
Mm-hmm.
There's
very manly.
Oh yeah, like
there was Tyler was the only chick out there. All the other chicks had terrible late 80s, early 90s high cut French bikinis on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Those are the worst.
Yeah, and Lori Petty is a bit of a tomboy anyway, so
yeah, she is very boyish.
It can fit in with that crowd, I guess, to a point. She's out there playing football with them on the beach and things. Yeah, surfing. I don't know. I maybe the closest I'd ever do would be like paddleboarding, which seems just kind of the most bizarre recent phenomenon of outdoor water sports. Have you seen?
Lazy. Where you stand on a surfboard and you have like a long, like oar.
Yeah, it takes.
It looks like you're walking around the water.
It takes two sports and takes the most boring elements out of them and combines them.
Standing on a board on flat water and rowing.
So, like, you take a kayak, and where a kayak has a little bit of adventure to it because you're on the water and you can handle a little bit more chop.
Well, you can do kayak like in little. Well, maybe they do this. What do you call it? Paddleboard? Maybe they do it down like whitewater paddleboarding. Oh my God. That's the next thing. I'm going to start a tour on the Skycoma tour company right now.
If you do anything like that, you have to call it surfing.
Well, what you could do is, here's what you do. You get you put on like these aqua ski boots, and basically you have what do you call the fittings on the skis where your boots get into?
They already have that actually.
But you put them on the paddleboard, so you can't fall off.
They have that, and and that segues to big wave riding, which is what Bodhi's all about. Catching the big wave. Mm-hmm. Big wave riding now, and I don't know if it's a fairly recent invention. It may have occurred after this film was made, but what they do now to ride really huge waves, like bizarrely huge waves, is they get towed in on a jet ski.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Where the surfboard actually has what you mentioned, which is foot straps. So you foot strap into it, and then you more or less water ski being towed behind a jet ski.
Until you can get
and then the jet ski comes up to the wave, and then it kind of just does a whip. And then it whips you up into the wave, and then you do a cut, and then now you're riding like this supernaturally high wave.
But that's like big open ocean waves.
They have done it in big open ocean waves. Like there's big breaks out where.
But they do it on beaches too. They do that.
Well, they do it wherever a big wave's at.
Okay, because you have to, in order to catch the wave, you got to paddle yourself up to a certain speed.
This takes care of it via jet ski.
Because there's probably a limit to how much you can hand paddle, how fast you can get going to catch the wave.
I think that's what they realized is that you reach the theoretical limit.
There's waves that are really too big to catch by hand.
Passive wave riding. So now you get towed in on a jet ski, which is even more dangerous.
Why don't you just take a cigar boat, catch the big waves in a cigar boat? Wouldn't that be fun?
I don't know. Maybe. You'd probably lose a lot more hardware. rolling a ski boat onto coral was probably not that great of an idea.
Yeah, maybe not.
So, yeah, love letter to surfing. I would agree, and it's come a long way since the the old '60s beach movies where they had the shaky projector behind Annette Funicello and
you're sitting on like a sitting on like a beach board on a post. You're going
with perfectly dry coiffed hair. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
No, and you got to remember they're doing this all with film.
Yeah,
natural exposure rates.
Well, surfing documentaries. I mean, there was Endless Summer, which was a '60s surfing documentary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then there was a recent one that was pretty good called like Step Into Liquid, which is about big waves.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that one. I don't know if I think that was probably filmed on film. So digitally, I don't know.
The technology has gotten pretty good to do surf film.
So I obviously I did no research, but I wonder if, considering she was married to Scott at the time, did they have to invent any new technology for this film, like some of the water cameras or some special lenses?
I'm assuming not. I'm assuming that they just went ahead and used what existing technology there was for documentary
I wouldn't be too surprised if they had to create something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
So we kind of talked about the production there. I guess we can get kind of into the meat of the film, which I don't know. Where do you start with?
Well, if we want to talk about the story.
There's not
Bodhi,
the story.
Johnny Utah.
Yeah. Okay. For starters, Point Break has kind of gotten its cult status from. I don't want to call it campy. It's almost cheesy.
There's plenty of two-dimensional characters, and there's a whole hell of a lot of cheesy, poorly delivered dialogue, especially by Utah.
I want to mention something about Point Break. Since in the 20 years that it's been around, there was a theater act called Point Break Live, and it ran for about surprisingly 5 years. And Point Break Live, and I YouTubed a few of these little clips. So it was a theater recreation of Point Break
on a small stage.
Yeah, on a small stage,
like with no, just like the empty set sort of.
It was cheap. No, it had.
Or did they actually have beach sets?
No, it had like surfers and fake wigs and like a kiddie pool with some.
They were just making fun of it.
Yeah, they're making fun of it, but they would deliver the dialogue from the script, and the gimmick is that they would you would go to Point Break Live, and they would pick a guy randomly out of the audience,
and he would come up and talk about the asshole shortage.
He would go up and play Keanu Reeves, and so there was a gal that would run around with cue cards that had all the Keanu Reeves lines on it. So all the actors had done it before, knew all their lines, so they would repeat their lines from the movie. And the guy would, if it was you, you would look down at the cue cards and then you would repeat Keanu Reeves lines from Point Break. And so the whole idea, and let me find out what the point of it was.
Well, because he delivers his lines very wooden.
To capture the rawness of a Keanu Reeves performance, even from those who generally think themselves incapable of acting. I watched 2 or 3 clips, and it was pretty funny.
Are we going to jump, or are we going to jerk off?
And one of the guys who went to see the Point Break Live, rethought his impressions of Point Break, and he actually compiled the 11 most cheesiest lines from the film.
Do you want to read them, or shall I read them? Go for it.
There's 11 here, and some of them are kind of long. But
let's do it. Let's throw a couple at me.
Okay. Bodhi, this is your fucking wake-up call, man. I'm an FBI agent.
I'm an FBI agent. That's there in the back of the van.
And so the guy commenting on this actually said that him and his friend came away with the idea that Johnny Utah is probably the worst FBI undercover agent ever. For starters...
we could talk about anything that Utah has a hand in is a colossal fuck-up. First off, when Anthony Kiedis and the Crazy Surfers, when they go to bust them, they go in with a the smallest FBI SWAT team in the history of SWAT teams. It's him.
It's like 4 guys, right?
Yeah, overweight, his overweight buddy,
Pappas,
and then 2 guys that hate them, 2 younger agents, and a bunch of people get killed. It's a colossal fuck up. It's right up there with all the colossal police fuck ups in Hard Boiled.
Yeah, I was thinking that Johnny Utah is a bit of a tequila hack.
Yeah, he's anything he touches. I mean, you just go through the film. I mean, the raid's a total fuck up. When they finally figures out who the dead presidents are, they fuck up the casing, the bank, so they get away, and they have a terrible chase scene where they unload clips out into the public and miss absolutely everybody.
So that actually, there's 2 more lines that were called the top 11 cheesiest, and it's Pappas, or Gary Busey's character, obsession with those fucking meatball sandwiches that literally blow the steak out of the bank.
Oh, and he's reading like Ziggy or something.
And like, who laughs at the fucking? I mean, that's crazy Gary Busey going on
Pappas
right there.
does.
Yeah, but yeah, he gets obsessed about those fucking meatball sandwiches.
It's 10:30 in the morning, man.
Well, that's kind of what time I eat. I'm an early guy.
Well, I guess if you're camping out at a bank.
So yeah, he's like he has Utah get him 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And then
he could eat the ass out of
I'm so hungry I could eat the ass end out of a dead rhino. I should have you gotten me 3 of these things. And all the while, the ex-presidents are filing into the bank and doing their job.
They've already filed in. They got their 90-second turnaround time.
Yeah, and while they're fucking around getting meatball sandwiches. So, yeah, that was a fuck up.
Yeah.
And then the horrible chase scene where I don't think anybody dies in it, but it's definitely I don't know what the right word is. Well, it's a car chase and a foot chase. Although I did like the foot chase one.
Oh, I thought the whole chase was really good. I'm just saying that Utah fucked up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Both those times.
Yeah.
I mean, every time he pulls his piece out, it would be a big fucking media bonanza. People would get fired for the sort of bullshit he pulls.
Yeah, how he gets turned back onto the case after the fuck up with the crankhead surfer house.
Yeah, how is he not just fired?
Yeah, he's it's his raid.
It's
his first raid.
He fucks up a DEA undercover job. Yeah, and then the next thing you know, he gets sort of blackmailed by Bodhi. And he goes to help them rob a bank, and that's a colossal fuck up on top of everything else.
Yeah, it's like a Patty Hearst scenario where he goes on the raid with them.
And next he convinces Pappas to let him chase after them to the airport. He goes, and that's a close. Pappas gets killed.
That's right.
Another one of the dead presidents gets killed. A plane gets hijacked, and at the end of the movie, he's still a fucking FBI agent. After all that. It's nothing but fuck up after fuck up.
You would think that landing in the desert of Mexico, you just would have fucking stayed there.
He was already under arrest before he even got to that point.
Oh yeah, what happened with that court case?
He was still, but at the end of the film, he's still an FBI agent. I'm just saying, it's got a lot of. They are. Did Hardboiled come out before or after this? I don't know. They seem like they're about the same time.
I think about the same time. Yeah.
Well, he's a terrible FBI agent.
So that's not what this person who went and saw Point Break live was commenting on. He was like undercover agent when he's number 9 for Ohio State, Johnny Utah, till he fucked up his knee. Remember the surfers like, oh, hey, man, it's number 9 from Ohio State.
That is actually a really great scene. I almost used that as our intro, but there's too much beach noise.
The whole scene or just the part?
I got it here. You want me to play it for you?
Let's hear a drop. Let's drop that bitch in.
No, I don't know who this is. It's Johnny Utah. The Ohio State Buckeyes all-conference, remember?
Number 9, man. How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Jesus Christ. Johnny, fucking Utah, sorry, man. Didn't get in your face.
Man, I knew you. It was the Rose Bowl 3 years ago. You beat SC, right?
You did this.
Yeah.
That was one hell of a game.
Yeah, you got nuked in the last quarter or something.
Yeah, I got my knee folded back about 90 degrees the wrong way.
That's why you never went pro?
2 years of surgery. Missed my window. Went through law school instead.
Law school? You're a lawyer? Wow. Well, life's not over yet, man. You're surfing.
Lawyers don't surf.
This one does.
I do like that interchange. But yeah, he goes in as himself.
Yeah.
But, maybe that's the more effective undercover thing.
I don't know. Maybe it's like James Bond when he is I'm Bond. James Bond's like, really? You're like the most famous international spy ever?
Well, I guess just because he was he went to the Rose Bowl. Fucking QB'd in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, and now he's an undercover agent.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's okay. You drop off the radar, but I guess, could you just Google search somebody and find out whether they're FBI agent or not?
Well, this was before all that.
This is pre-Google.
This was before all that.
He didn't have his Facebook page with him going, dude, totally got to be an FBI agent, man.
Yeah, you could go to his bio page on Wikipedia and find out that he was a Quantico graduate of the FBI.
Yeah, and you could find out that his parents aren't actually dead when he feeds Tyler that line.
A real Blue Flame special.
What does Blue Flame mean? Both their boss and Pappas uses the term Blue Flame. I've never heard of it.
I don't know. There's I was saying Blue Light Special, but that's like an old Kmart reference for Blue Flame. I don't know.
I never Googled it, so I guess neither of us Googled it.
I don't know.
Whatever. He was totally a Blue Flame special.
Yeah, that's a pretty funny scene. I don't know. It seems a little forced, obviously. But.
I thought, the thing is, Bodhi, I mean, he makes the whole film, Patrick Swayze's
and half of the...
When everybody else is a little bit of a cardboard cutout, Bodhi is a fully realized character.
Yeah, maybe this is a good time.
Without him, this movie would sort of suck.
It would be...
But Patrick Swayze he takes Bodhi and just puts his Bodhi suit on.
So let's talk about Bodhi. I came across an Entertainment Weekly review just in the kind of the summary part here in Wikipedia, but there's a comment by Owen Gleiberman, and Point Break makes those of us who don't spend our lives searching for the ultimate physical rush feel like second-class citizens. The film turns reckless athletic valor into a new form of aristocracy. And so Bodhi is the epitome of, I think, that well-put line. And, he's
more than just about adrenaline rush. He's also sort of a Zen, sort of a Buddhist.
He has... That's Bodhi. They call him the Bodhisattva. What is
Bodhisattva? What does that apply?
It's a Buddhist term for being of wisdom or something like that.
Yeah, he does. He sees. I mean, it's almost like a guy who took acid. You know how acid will take some people and sort of set them down somewhere a little off norm, but sometimes it works out for people. Like it gives them a little more. I don't know. It lets them step back from society. He sort of has that feel.
Isn't he just kind of full of bullshit? I mean, watching this, I've met what I would call more low rent versions of Bodhi. Mm-hmm. Usually, kind of in the skiing world, because that's the only sort of analogous activity that I've done that could relate to surfer. I've been around people who are ski bums who work seasonal jobs so they can go ski all winter, and being around him, there's a cliquishness to him, kind of like that reviewer was pointing out, and it's almost to be in their club it's like they're a club. Their personality or the group of people that they're around is sort of an exclusive club. Yeah, and to get admitted to that club, you have to be of a certain personality type, similar to...
You got to buy in a little bit?
You got to buy in, and obviously...
and what are you buying into?
You're buying in...
to this false spirituality? Now, I'm not going to argue that Bodhi's not... He's not heavily... He's not... doesn't have serious flaws.
Well, if I was sitting around the campfire...
But he does have an ethos he lives by. Which is...
I'd say it's almost a little hypocritical, because he's...
It certainly is hypocritical.
Because he talks about, being above... Yeah, that's the other one. It's like, I hate violence, man. I'm like, really, dude? You hold people at gunpoint, like, all summer long.
Yeah. You've done 30 armed robberies and you've never shot anybody? Plus, armed robbery, bank robbery, is one of the worst crimes. I mean, it's just one of the ones. It's one of the highest catch rates of any crime. For like profit per possibility of getting caught, it's absolutely one of the worst you can do. You might as well you should do wire fraud if you want your lowest chance of getting caught.
There was a great bank robbery in Ballard, where I live in Seattle, and it was two guys who who robbed a bank in daylight. I think daylight, that's banker's hours. You don't rob a bank at night, but anyway, broad daylight, I guess.
Yeah.
And took off, and people saw these two guys take off out of the bank. And they went and they got a cab. Like, they hailed the cab, or they called the cab, or there's a cab waiting for them.
Oh, okay.
And
That's weird.
And so they got in the cab. They weren't running with their guns and bags of money.
Yeah, so the cab driver didn't know any different.
Didn't know any different. And then the cab took off. And so the police showed up and they go, did you see what happened to these guys? And there was a ton of witnesses because it was the middle of the day. They said, he went over and they got over into an orange cab. Mm-hmm. And so all they had to go through is the dispatch list and figure out where that cab went, even if they did pay the cabbie in cash, which...
Yeah. So did they take the cab back to their apartment?
They got a hold of Orange Cab, and they go, where did that cab go? And they go, it went up to some transient it went up to this transient hotel on Aurora.
And that's where the guys were? Well, see, usually the sort of bank robbers, it's usually desperate people. Will just do anything for a couple of grand.
Sure. So, obviously, Bodhi and company, the ex-presidents, have a system in place.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad system.
Yeah.
They're ghosts, man.
So, but he says, he talks about the system, but he goes, this was never about the money for us. Bullshit right there.
It was, because they needed to finance their lifestyle.
Yeah, so of course it's about the money. It was about us against the system, that system that kills the human spirit. We stand for something to those dead souls inching along the freeways in their metal coffins. We show them that the human spirit is still alive. And I'm like, no, you're kind of a parasite, and you feed off the system.
Yeah, you're right.
You're not above it. You're not bucking it. If you really truly were against the system, you would live like a penniless monastic lifestyle on Bali and surf that way as some kind of weird hermit. You wouldn't be fucking getting cash from knocking over banks so you could go buy CDs at Tower Records and having lunch at Patrick's Roadhouse. I mean, you'd be above it, right? You'd be some kind of Zen guru master.
No, he's still busy getting laid.
Yeah, he's
having parties and flying around the world.
Which is, he's a fucking hypocrite. So yeah. I mean,
he does have a real nice facade.
Well, it's the kind of metaphysical thing where he's talking about. When he's talking about the four goons on the beach. By the way, I was thinking, wouldn't it be awesome to be referred to as War Child?
Would you like me to call you War Child?
Please do. It's like, can you go? I need to get
welcome to the cult of Matt and Mark, like War Child.
I was just thinking, like, if I was in the office and like that was my nickname, War Child, I was like, we're gonna need.
Can you get it on your badge?
We're gonna need some electrical specs transferred over from the customer, and can you work that? No, I can't. But War Child down on the end of the cubicle block there can do it for
Matthew, it wouldn't be that hard. You could just legally get your name changed. Your legal name probably has to be on your ID. There you go. It's done. You can be War Child World Peace.
Anyway, the four goons that Bodhi, and that's another thing. Bodhi he's
like Bodhi's not just all about violence.
Well, he took those dudes out like he was some Brazilian jiu-jitsu master.
Oh, Bodhi's an exceptional person, just like Johnny Utah are. They're not normal people. Like so many films, the film's about exceptional persons. So the fact that he took out War Child and Anthony Kiedis and the goons, it's not that. It just goes to show that he is an exceptional human being. But he's not just about senseless violence. He uses violence as a tool. He's a little more like the, sort of, how people who are really successful act, is that they use the tools indiscriminately that they have. I mean, he goes over the line a lot with his violence.
So
the violence is, he doesn't love violence.
He hates violence.
He may hate it, but it's another tool in his tool chest. I hate hammers. When I got to put a nail in, I got to use one.
That comment he makes about those four goons, though, is we're talking about like Bodhi's sort of Zen metaphysical side. It's like they only live to get radical. They don't understand the spiritual side.
And it doesn't mean he doesn't understand the spiritual side.
Well, okay.
I think he does.
So I get.
I mean, people are always a collection of these sort of opposing opinions. We all keep within ourselves things that they don't really jive with each part.
So maybe hypocrite isn't the best term. Maybe juxtaposition of character or contrast or paradox is maybe the better word to describe him than...
Yeah, he's a collection of paradoxes like everybody's a collection of paradoxes.
Okay, which is...
He's just an exceptional... He has a bunch of exceptional paradoxes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but some of his metaphysical musings, like everything moves in cycles. So twice a century, the ocean lets us know just how small we are. Storm comes out of Antarctica, tearing up the Pacific, and sends its huge swell north miles. And when it hits Bell's Beach, it'll turn into the biggest surf this planet has ever seen, and I will be there. Which, really, he should be probably one of the top meteorologists as well, because being able to predict the 50-year storm.
Well, it is weird that he talks about a 50-year storm causing the biggest surf this world's ever seen. You mean the biggest surf it sees twice a century? The biggest surf he'll see in his lifetime.
Sure. Like Halley's Comet of surf.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't have a big problem with that. There's all sorts of talk.
Well, I think the problem is I'm doing a little guilt by association because I've met, like I said, low rent versions of Bodhi. That typically in the ski bum world.
Well, he's really deep down, he's selfish. He's a selfish big. And you really sort of see it laid bare at the end when he goes on the run by himself.
Yeah.
It's really not about his buddies and how he just, like when he leaves, when he's down when it's just the gang of two, the ex-presidents or the gang of two when he is on the ground in Mexico after
Well, that's Rosie, who's technically not an ex-president. That's his strong man. That's his...
Yeah, that's his muscle. He's not an adrenaline junkie, Rosie.
No.
But anyways, it's still part of his gang. That he just leaves the last of the dead presidents on the ground to rot. He takes the money. And in the end, Rosie gets killed.
Yeah.
And he's all by himself. But he's still only worried about catching the ultimate wave. So in the essence, he is extremely selfish.
Well, and that attitude isn't unique, especially with people who do, I'm just going to say, extreme activities, whether it's
people that are very successful.
Big mountain climbing or, I guess in this case, big wave riding. He says something, and this is something that, it's a comment that drives me insane when I hear about it on the news. Usually it has to do with people who are mountain climbers or die up on Mount Rainier and stuff. Well, Bodhi prefaces the comment by saying, if you want the ultimate, you've got to be willing to pay the ultimate price. It's not tragic doing what you love. And I hear that quite a bit with, kind of extreme skiers who die in avalanches and mountain climbers. You hear that on the news, like friends who say that. Well, at least he died doing what he loved. And I'm like...
What's wrong with that?
Because it's a shrug off of tragedy that is... Well, the problem is yes, it is tragic that these people did doing what they love, because for starters, a lot of them have families and people that care about them.
Oh, yeah, they leave like their kids behind.
And so sometimes I'll hear
Not
about...
Bodhi, though.
Well, okay. Not Bodhi, but that catch line, doing what you love, die doing what you love. And for starters, I always think of the literal. I'm like, oh, he died. He died
from extreme child rearing. He loved raising his children, but he went over the edge.
That's right. He took it to the edge. He was an attachment parent so much that he had
drowned in wild waves.
That's
showing his kids the time of their lives.
That's right.
He died doing what he loved.
That's right. He had an aneurysm in the teacups at Disneyland. He fucking died doing what he loved.
Would that be a tragedy? I don't know.
Yeah, nobody says that, right?
Seems about the same to me. I don't know. Dying doing what you love rather than dying of pancreatic cancer?
Yeah,
I think I'd rather die doing what I love.
Some doting father gets beamed in the side of the head at his kid's
really
Little League game and dies.
Autoerotic asphyxiation. Then maybe I could die doing what I love.
David Carradine died doing what he loved. So did Michael Hutchins of NXS.
Beaten off with a rope around his neck. Is it a tragedy? I don't know. I mean, everybody dies. I mean, maybe it's not a tragedy when you're 95 that you die. But if you got to die, if everybody's got to die anyways, you might as well die doing what you love. Right?
Well, like I said,
it's certainly less tragic than being hit by Matthew Broderick on some back road in Ireland. Right?
Yeah, it's not doing what you love.
Yeah, I love getting hit by drunk drivers.
Well, I was always thinking the literal when you think about people say, "Oh, die doing what I love." I was like, "What's that? Freezing to hypothermia? You enjoy?"
I love hypothermia.
I love hypothermia, and I'm glad I died doing it. Or drowning when you're an extreme
I love
scuba diver.
getting beaten on rocks below the surf. I do really love it. He loved rocks, loved water.
He loved coral.
He always says, "I dream of being one of those rocks in the polishing tumbler."
Okay, we're taking that a little off to the side.
But you're saying it's tragic. I don't know. I mean, sure, maybe it's always tragic when somebody in their 30s or whatever dies with a family, but it happens. So you might as well die doing something you love.
No, that's crap. It's crap. It's okay.
You're not supposed to take a risk.
Maybe
what if you have like $1 million life insurance?
Is it a tragedy when heroin junkies OD?
They die doing what they love? Not really.
What?
It's a tragedy?
Oh, you're kind of getting amoral with this. I
have a hard time. I mean, it's a tragedy more when it's certainly more of a tragedy when it comes out of the blue, like you hit with a piano falling off a building when you're walking to work.
Well,
that's more tragic than dying in a ski accident where you run into a tree.
I'm trying to draw an analogy here because, so if you take big wave riding or big mountain skiing or whatever, and you have a family member who's engaged in that activity and they're obsessed with it and that's what they live to do, and then they die doing it, how is that different than having a family member who's addicted to heroin and who ODs? And it's a selfish activity, for starters. You're doing it completely for yourself. You're not doing it for your family or any reason. It's not like you're volunteering at
you're doing it for your own personal gratification.
Sure, but it's risky. It's risky.
Yeah.
But when you're doing it big mountain skiing, somehow that's more constructive than shooting heroin into your veins. And is it because?
Well, I think it's more constructive because it's easier to draw the line between I'm on the mountain, I'm off the mountain.
Right. So
I'm on the junk. I'm not on the junk. So it's a little harder distinction. You don't just get in your car and drive off the junk.
So you don't come home and your brother-in-law is stolen.
You don't drive the gold bar and become a junkie for the weekend and then come home and you're clean.
Right. You come home and like your brother-in-law has stolen like your fucking TV set. Because he needed to buy junk. Yeah. You don't have your brother-in-law who's a skier coming and like stealing shit so he can get some gas money to go up to wherever. In the mountains.
I guess I don't have a problem with people dying doing what they love.
I just think
whether it be David Carradine or some meth addict.
Okay. All right. I just think it's a cop out, and I kind of loathe when I hear that.
For a selfish activity.
It's a selfish activity.
Well, I mean, as long as you realize that it is, you're doing it just
died doing a selfish activity.
He died doing something that was just for him.
Okay, it's better than dying like saving somebody from like a flood or
saving a fat guy caught in a storm drain. I'd be rather to do that.
All right, well, and whatever. I guess it's better than dying of a heart attack in my cubicle at age 60. But...
yeah, it's better than dying on the John and nobody finds you for 2 months while your body mummifies.
Wow, that happened to somebody?
It happens.
Did it happen to Elvis? No, Elvis, They found him immediately, but he died on the pot. I took a tour of Elvis's honeymoon hideaway in Palm Springs.
Oh, really?
And sadly, the room that I focused on most was the toilet.
Is that where he died?
No, but Elvis was chronically constipated throughout his whole life.
Because of drug use?
Possibly. And they actually believed that was led to his death was chronic constipation. And,
okay.
Anyway, so I going through his house, saw the toilet, and I'm like,
You're straining.
there's probably some bad moments on that toilet. So Elvis did not probably die doing what he loved.
It's all that hip shaking.
So Bodhi, he's
selfish. He's self-centered.
He's a paradox.
Yeah, he's a paradox. He's sort of a dick. You probably don't want to hang out with him.
Well, he wouldn't let you hang out with him, I don't think. You're not in his club.
You let me totally hang out with him, brah.
Bra. Yeah, there's a lot of overuse of the word bra, which is more of a Hawaiian word, not so much a Southern California thing.
Whatever, bra.
Yeah, the club thing, and then there's kind of where they're talking about surfing, and it's using all those sort of surfing colloquialisms and things like that.
Yeah, it didn't really speak to me. The idea of, even in the best case, you're just riding a board down a swell in water.
I've been in conversations, and I call them kind of gear talk or whatever. But
it's like talking to a guy that's really into racing cars.
Well, I don't want to mention names, although they don't listen to my podcast anyway. But I have a group of friends who are sort of outdoor nuts, and when I say outdoor nuts, like they're always in the mountains, either backpacking or skiing, or but sitting around kind of a dinner table with them, since that's what they have in common, it's this kind of can't speak of gear and nuance of more. I call it gear talk because that's all they really talk about.
Well,
like,
I mean,
sleeping bags and ski bindings and and it's what they enjoy. And then they talk about, like, I was going down this steep and I was cutting a turn, and I mean that's kind of the exciting parts of the conversation. But really, and even I understand what they're talking about. It's boring conversation.
Well, if you're not into it, it's like being with a couple of guys they really love Star Trek, talking about Star Trek.
Yeah, but that's more pop culture, and we can all kind of... Yeah, I don't like listening to it, but...
You just say this. If you are more... You ski a little bit. If you are more into that stuff, the conversations would be interesting to you.
Right. I equate it to when I overhear business conversations at lunch. You're talking about somebody's job, and it's excruciatingly boring if you're not involved. But
it's not surprising.
But that's business. This is more social engagements where the art of conversation seems to be lost because you're so focused on the minutia of your activities that it makes for...
You're being too harsh, bro.
I'm just saying that there's a guy I work with who has climbed Mount McKinley, mountain climber. He's been all around the world with the Navy. Most boring human being you could ever meet. Just excruciatingly boring.
Oh, because he wants to talk about all the details?
Well,
the thing is, you're talking about people in a room. Of course they're going to talk about all the little minutia of the activity they enjoy. If you're doing one-on-one with those people, they wouldn't go into that. They talk about more broad strokes, like, what sort of feelings arose when I hit the summit of this mountain.
No, they don't talk. They don't give you that.
Or maybe an interesting story about, a time that their life was in danger and they just made it out by the skin of their teeth.
To use Bodhi's phrase, they don't talk about the spiritual side of it. They only live to get radical. No, it's just I don't know, man. I've been around these people, and I've got up and left a few times from conversations.
Well, which you probably should, because it's not really a conversation you're a part of.
At the time, it was, but even when I've been a part of it, there's such boring conversations. I have to get up and leave.
Okay.
It's fucking boring. It makes for whatever.
Sounds like maybe you shouldn't have dinner with them.
I've kind of stopped. Anyway,
well, that's the way it goes. People have different interests; they move in different directions.
All right.
It's not weird.
No, it's not weird.
I guess that's the thing I want to make a point. It's just like that's what they're into.
It's
like if you were hanging out with a bunch of gay guys talking about cock, it'd be sort of boring.
Well, dude, talking about cock has no gender bias.
We're talking about
everybody loves
musicals.
Oh, yeah.
You want to sit down and yak about musicals?
I could form an opinion. I could talk about how I don't like them, and I could go into why I don't like them.
You talk about how you think adventure sports are for a bunch of small-dicked weirdos.
Well, I kind of... Yeah, I try to insinuate that into the conversations.
That's not going to make you anybody's.
I try to... Yeah, I usually... I don't know. All right, so I've kind of gone on my rant.
Yeah, you got a little bit. You had some strong emotions. About
well,
that.
It's just I've been around it, and it bores me, and kind of back to this, the film turns reckless athletic valor into a new form of aristocracy. Yeah.
Guys, everybody's in good shape.
Let's not make more of it than it is. That's kind of the point. It's a recreational activity. Like, I'm sure he doesn't listen to it, so I'm going to mention him. Extreme Mark, who you've met.
Yeah, he's like a professional sports.
No,
guy,
he's some IT dude. I don't know, but
he's done some professional.
No, he's not done anything professionally. He's
I
just
thought he had some sponsorship.
well, he made this comment, which his now wife sort of made fun of him about. He was like, "Yeah, for the first 10 years of my life, I dedicated my life to skiing." Like, and she was like, "You mean you're a ski bum?" And that's really what he was.
Yeah, I'm just saying that maybe there is some sort of spiritual meaning you might come to when you get really deep into something that maybe you can't see. I'm just saying there could be some mystery
That's
there.
life, man. You should be trying to get that on an everyday basis. Yeah,
Believe me, I'm as cynical as the next guy, but I still think there might be something there to uncover, even if it's false.
Dude, Bodhi's going to take you to the edge. I see it in your eyes.
Maybe beyond. Speaking of beyond the edge,
yeah.
I'd like to see what Ebert had to say about
All
this.
right, let's hit the Ebert review.
Well, Ebert reviewed this movie on July 12th, 1991, and he liked it, giving it 3.5 stars, which is a pretty solid.
Good Ebert review.
Since he's out of 4. But anyway, so he starts it off, the review with The Bodhi Tree, which I hadn't heard about.
The Bodhi
According
tree.
to Buddhists, is a tree beneath which one finds enlightenment.
Yeah, it's the being of enlightenment.
It's the
Or being
tree.
of wisdom.
Oh, yeah, maybe so. But anyways, I never realized that's where Bodhi came from. That's not how it works with Bodhi, though. The surfing bank robber who is the existential hero of Point Break. He
Existential hero.
He has such a pervasive character that Johnny Utah falls under his spell. We never really talked about that.
It's a bromance.
But he has a power over Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
Like when he's running away in that really nice foot chase scene, and he just, through the sheer force of will through his eyes, cause Johnny Utah not to shoot him.
Yeah, and then there's the getting him to commit a bank robbery.
Yeah, there's that. Well, no, that's not the hardest part because he has his girlfriend.
Oh, well, that's that.
The hardest part is where he shows up the next day when they both know the score and gets him to go jump out of an plane with them.
Right.
That's just sheer force of will.
I was trying to think of a like if they could maybe. Like, if he thought Johnny didn't know it was him, he knew?
No, everybody knew what the score was.
Oh, right.
It was just sheer force of personality.
Interesting, yeah.
He says that Johnny Utah is a thankless name. I guess he didn't like that name. I thought it was pretty good. He says, this is some California movie, all right.
Yeah, I'll amen to that.
The plot description I have just supplied, where he summarizes the plot, could just as easily work for Naked Gun 3.5.
Well, this plot actually works for a few movies, and most notably was a movie I didn't see called The Fast and Furious.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a car version
I heard
rip-off.
some of The Fast and Furious is pretty good.
Car version rip-off of Point Break starring Vin Diesel.
But he says Point Break takes the story deadly serious. Even after adding several other preposterous developments, like a guy who gets so mad, this is Johnny Utah, he jumps out of a plane without a parachute, free falls until he can tackle a guy who has one, and then holds a gun to his head while they're still in free fall.
The Mythbusters actually tried to accomplish this stunt. And not for real, but they set up the experiment.
Yeah, could you hold on to somebody and not fall off?
It wasn't so much that was the issue, but they wouldn't have flat out been able to free fall for 90 seconds.
Oh yeah,
that's too.
They would have been super high up.
He may have been able to catch up to Bodhi doing like a head down dive like he was doing. The thing I was doing is why didn't he just go up to and
The dead guy.
flip Roach out of his back.
Yeah, that would be a better choice. Yeah, I thought that's what he was going to go do.
Yeah, Roach is a stiff by that point.
Yes, Roach is going to die. Yeah, Roach can still, it's not tumbling. He's still able to hold, which is you have to put your arms way back in order to keep that flat trajectory.
Yeah.
It's, have you skydived before?
No, you have,
I have,
actually.
yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. It was a blast. The sun set as I fell down.
Bodhi didn't take you to the edge?
No, he didn't take me to the edge and push me off. I just jumped out of a plane. Actually, I was sort of happy to jump out of the plane because it's so fucking noisy. You just want to get out of that goddamn...
It's cramped and noisy.
It's cramped and noisy. It's just so peaceful once you get out until you start going 100 miles an hour.
Right. Okay.
Anywho, let me see what else he has to say. Talking about Bodhi, he says he's part mystic, part criminal, all over surfer.
All right.
Right.
Is that anything else?
Yeah, he's got a couple other things. He says Point Break is not the kind of movie where we should spend a lot of time analyzing the motives of characters.
Yeah, that's it. I'm glad we didn't actually. Yeah, no, that's it.
Like once Johnny Utah realizes, for example, that Bodhi knows he's an FBI agent. An FBI agent.
FBI agent.
Should he really go skydiving with him?
While they're flipping chutes around on each other. Yeah. Exactly.
And then he talks about Bigelow. He says Bigelow and her crew are gifted filmmakers. She's an interesting director for this material. He says she is interested in the ways her characters live dangerously for philosophical reasons. Which sort of doesn't make sense where he says you shouldn't analyze the motives of the characters. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Actually, I would recommend you go watch The Hurt Locker because The Hurt Locker's, while it's set in the Iraq War, isn't really about the Iraq War. And it's about this personality type, for whatever reason, Bigelow is fixated on. The only thing I can think of...
similar characters.
Maybe James Cameron's kind of that way, because he's a bit of a junkie, adrenaline junkie.
He talks about that here. He goes, talking about Bigelow's character and how she's interested in these characters. The characters, they aren't men of action, but men of thought who choose action as a way of expressing their beliefs. I don't know if I quite follow that. That adds an intriguing element to their characters and makes the final confrontation of this movie as meaningful as it can be, given the admittedly preposterous nature of it.
What, where he sends them out into the waves?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how... I
don't know. He's, in one paragraph he's saying we shouldn't analyze the motives of his characters, and then he says that's what makes it interesting. Maybe
the supporting characters, maybe not necessarily the main character.
Maybe Bigelow gets to the heart of it properly in Hurt Locker.
She does.
She didn't quite have the storytelling skills. She had all the cinematography and photography acumen at this point, but maybe she didn't quite have the chops storytelling wise. And maybe she finally put it all together.
Yeah, the Hurt Locker, but it kind of disseminates down more of the. It's more about risk in that movie, not necessarily action. It's more about people who need a more kind of almost a fish out of water, like in our current day and age. More Fight Clubby, I guess, if you want to start to kind of go that route. But,
you know, reading this review, I'm not sure how it adds up to 3.5 stars.
No. Maybe he just, I mean, it's great to look at.
I think he just enjoyed the film because the photography is so beautiful. I mean, all he says about that is that the Bigelow is a gifted filmmaker. But I tell you, it is about the moving picture. And this has some beautiful moving pictures.
I watched this movie, and I've seen this movie so many times, but I smiled at every new scene because
it's gorgeously made.
I kind of knew what was coming up, and I was like,
more than half of it.
Oh, this is going to be the raid scene, or this is going to be the jumping out of the airplane scene, or I don't know. I got excited for every little bit that was coming up in the film.
No, it's just a beautiful film, and I think that's what earns its 3.5 stars. It's one of those cases when it's a little more difficult to talk about than the characters.
Yeah.
It's beyond language to a certain extent.
It's 100% pure adrenaline.
Yeah, man. Good ball. Let's wrap it up.
All right, that's about all I had on Point Break. Any other? What happened to Lori Petty? Where is she?
I just don't think. I have no idea. I didn't look to see what happened to her.
Isn't she like in a sitcom or something? And I didn't look at her either.
I don't know.
I actually did some background on Keanu because Keanu's easy to beat up on.
Well, he's not that great of an actor.
He's not that great of an actor, but actually, kind of Keanu had it rough as growing up. I guess his parents weren't around and drop out and stuff like that. Well, whatever. I don't know. I kind of felt bad for him. There's actually an internet meme called "Sad Keanu." Keanu is sad.
I heard he might be gay.
Oh, that's urban
that
legend.
real?
No, it's not real.
Okay.
Yeah, sad Keanu. Keanu is sad, or he's like eating a sandwich on a park bench in New York, and it's.
I know exactly what he was feeling there. Some days I'm just like, fucking cannot fucking believe another day of this bullshit.
So there's just like gigabytes of doctored Adobe Photoshop of Keanu Reeves, and various.
Well, we all been there, man. This is very better than any of his actual acting as far as conveyance of emotion.
To be honest, I read he got his girlfriend pregnant, but the baby died, and then she died in a car accident. It seemed really tragic.
Oh, when he was like that, it was after a tough time in his life?
Yeah, it was around the Matrix time, and I felt kind of bad for him. I don't know. A little rough.
Tragedy happens. At least she died doing what she loved.
I'd like to do... What? It's a little off color. All right. I'd like to do another Keanu movie at some point. I'd like to do The River's Edge.
Yeah, we should really do The River's Edge. I think that's an
It's a great Crispin Glover movie, anyway.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to come back and do The River's
Edge. But next week we're gonna make we're gonna try to make one of our listeners' dreams come true and review a movie recommendation that I forget his name, Aaron Connell or something, recommended to us a couple of times to do the movie Brick. And you thought that would be an appropriate movie because...
Looper's coming out. It's got some good reviews.
And the director...
I might actually get off my lazy ass and go see something in the theater for once.
The director is... What's his name?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Brian Johnson, I think.
The lead singer of AC/DC?
Yeah. Well, you can only do music for so long before you finally just go, I need to...
Back in black!
I got another... Ryan Johnson.
Oh, Ryan Johnson, okay.
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah. So he did...
You thought I said Brian?
Yeah, I thought you said Brian Johnson. So he did Brick, and I think I had Brick on, but I wasn't paying attention to it at some point, but it's like a high school noir, so it's sort of a hard-boiled noir, but it just happens to be set in high school. So it's it reminded me a little bit of like a movie like Romeo and Juliet, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, I love that movie when I was in my 20s.
Where it's Shakespeare, but it's done in contemporary settings. So, and Shakespeare, there's movies like that.
A teenage loner pushes his way into the underground of a high school crime ring to investigate the disappearance of his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, but it's not high school kids. They're high school kids on the outside, but they're actually I don't know.
It's like 21 Jump Street.
Did you see the new one?
No.
It was really funny.
I heard it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, it was really funny, actually.
So anyways, next week is Brick.
Next week
and
is
we'll
Brick.
do the new 21 Jump Street after that?
No, we're not doing that. We got to wait like about 10 or 15 years to see if it hits cult status before we can. Maybe not. I don't know. Whatever.
Okay.
We're open to everything. So, until next week.
Bye-bye.